Hello everyone and welcome back. I can't believe it, episode 2. This is where the fun is gonna start. I really hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. When I'm filming this, it hasn't even went up yet, but I'm already getting a lot of feedback and excitement, so I'm hoping you guys really enjoyed getting to know me and my practice. But now we're gonna be getting into what the podcast is actually gonna be about, witchcraft. I do have a Facebook group. It is private right now. Let me know if you're interested in joining it, but it's where I sneak peek what I'm going to be doing in my episodes and just tips and tricks for witchcraft. So let me know if you're interested in joining, and I will give you guys the link. But over there, I said that episode 2, and I even think I said it in my first episode, that this would be about witchcraft versus Wicca. And I also said that not all witches are Wiccan and not all Wiccans are witches. So, I'm sure a lot of you are probably confused by that because I'm sure you probably thought something completely different. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining how they're different, how they are kind of similar, and just maybe you can figure out which one fits you more. If you hear any noise, it is thundering, but also I'm filming in my room right now, and my dog is walking near me. She sees me talking to my camera and she's confused, and her little collar's just jingling, so you can probably hear her sniffing and jingling as I'm talking, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to help her find a spot. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to start off with witchcraft. By the way, all the links that I use for my research I always link down below. Just in case I missed something or something wasn't explained enough, I will always leave my resources down below so you can always research for yourself, which I highly encourage. So yeah, so starting off, what is witchcraft? So this was the actual definition that I found: the art or practices of a witch, sorcery, magic, magical influence, or witchery. So images of witches have appeared in various forms throughout history, from evil, wart-nosed women huddling over a cauldron of boiling liquid to hag-faced, cackling beings riding through the sky on brooms wearing pointy hats. In pop culture, the witch has been portrayed as a benevolent, nose-twitching suburban housewife, an awkward teenager learning to control her powers as a trio of charmed sisters battling the forces of evil. So it's been the image of a witch has been portrayed several different ways, not always necessarily good. But we're going to get into the real history of witches. And some of it is kind of dark, but it's probably not as dark as you've probably been taught, because I know a lot of you, if you're not a witch or you're not very familiar with it, you've probably been taught that it's evil. So we're actually going to kind of debunk that. Not saying that it's a perfect history, but you'll see. So the real history of witches is kind of dark, and sometimes for the witches it can be deadly. So early witches were people who practiced witchcraft using magic spells and calling upon spirits for help or to bring about change. Most witches were thought to be pagans doing the devil's work, which I honestly still thought to this day. I mean, a lot of them, yes, are pagans, but doing the devil's work, no, not necessarily. That is a complete myth. I know that there are some witches who they work with a deity and it is the devil, but that is it's not very common that I've noticed, so I do want you to keep that in mind. But many are just simply natural healers, or they're called wise women, whose choice of profession was misunderstood. It's unclear exactly when witches came onto the historical scene, but one of the earliest records of a witch is in the Bible in the book of 1 Samuel, thought to be written between 931 BC and 721 BC, and it tells the story of when King Saul sought the witch of Endor to summon the dead prophet Samuel's spirit to help him defeat the Philistine army. So it's kind of, chalky about when they really came onto the scene, but they have been around for a very long time. We have been around for a very long time. I'm sorry if I say they and not really include myself in it. It's kind of weird saying we sometimes, but yes, we have not really, we don't really know. But witch hysteria really took hold in Europe during the mid-1400s, when many accused witches confessed, often under torture, as we know, to a variety of wicked behaviors. Within a century, witch hunts were common and most of the accused were executed by burning at the stake or hanging. Single women, widows, and other women on the margins of society were especially targeted, which is absolutely horrible to think about, that if you really weren't well off, you were probably going to be targeted. Honestly, if you were kind of thought to be lower, you were probably going to be targeted, and that's absolutely just despicable and gross. So those are the kind of people that were targeted. Between the years of 1500 and 1660, up to 80,000 suspected witches were put to death in Europe. So we're not just talking about everywhere, we're just talking about in Europe right now. Around 80% of them were women who were thought to be in cahoots with the devil and filled with lust, which, I'm sorry, I just have to rant for a second. If you really think about the thought process behind these witch hunts back then, it's honestly disgusting. The things that they came up with just to kill people, it's absolutely just disturbing. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't really like a long rant, but it upsets me. I can't believe anybody ever thought that way about people. Because if you think about it, a lot of these people probably didn't even really practice witchcraft. And even if they did, that's no reason to murder someone. But anyways, moving on. Germany had the highest witchcraft execution rate, while Ireland had the lowest. The publication of Malleus Maleficarum, written by two well-respected German Dominicans in 1486, likely spurred witch mania to go viral. The book, usually translated as The Hammer of Witches, was essentially a guide on how to identify, hunt, and interrogate witches. Which, so fucking despicable. I don't know who thought that they had the knowledge to do this. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can't believe someone thought that they knew so much about witch hunting and just to kill people. It's upsetting, I'm sorry. But Malleus Maleficarum, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, labeled witchcraft as heresy and quickly became the authority for Protestants and Catholics trying to flesh out witches living among them. For more than 100 years, the book sold more copies of any other book in Europe except the Bible. As witch hysteria decreased in Europe, it grew in the New World, which was reeling from the wars between the French and the British, a smallpox epidemic, and the ongoing fear of attacks from neighboring Native American tribes. The tense atmosphere was ripe for finding scapegoats. Probably the best-known witch trials took place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, which I think we all know a lot about. I did. I think it was a couple years ago. I did a video about it on my main channel. The Salem witch trials is something that I've been obsessed with for a really long time. I've always wanted to go visit there and visit the memorial that they have for them. Because I think it's at one of the graveyards. They have a plaque that's actually honoring the fucking judges that sentenced them to jail. Like, what the fuck? But yeah, I think we all probably know about Salem, and the amount of stuff that actually happened, we didn't actually learn in school, which is just crazy to think that they didn't tell us everything. But yeah, I definitely agree that that's probably one of the most well-known witch trials, and I can't even imagine living during that time and having to live in fear, thinking that you're going to be prosecuted and tortured and killed for something that, honestly, like I said, they probably didn't even believe in it, and I can't even imagine having to wake up and wonder if you're going to be next. And I also remember studying the theories about why it happened, and whether it be boredom or something to do with their food. It's a mind-boggling that could have came from boredom or their food. It's just crazy to me. But anyways, the Salem witch trials began when 9-year-old Elizabeth Parris and 11-year-old Abigail Williams began suffering from fits, body contortions, and uncontrolled screaming. Today it's believed that they were poisoned by a fungus that caused spasms and delusions. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about, something in their food. I can't remember if it was in like their grain or something. I can't remember what it was actually called. It actually had a name. But that's what I was talking about. As more young women began to exhibit symptoms, mass hysteria ensued, and 3 women were accused of witchcraft: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba. Oh my god, okay, I'm sorry. Tituba. It's Tituba. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce anything, and I used to pronounce it a certain way, and then I found out that's not how you pronounce it. And anytime anybody tries to pronounce it, everyone's like, it's wrong. So is it Tituba? I'm sorry, but oh my gosh, Tituba was an enslaved woman owned by Paris's father, and Tituba confessed to being a witch and began accusing others of using black magic. On June 10th, Bridget Bishop became the first accused witch to be put to death during the Salem witch trials when she was hanged at the Salem gallows. Ultimately, around 150 people were accused and 18 would be put to death. And women weren't the only victims of the Salem witch trials. I think people forget that it's not just women that are witches, even to this day. It can be anyone can be a witch. And people often leave out or forget the men that were killed, and that's absolutely heartbreaking because men also lost their lives. But yeah, 6 men were also convicted and executed. And Massachusetts, I'm sorry, I can't speak today. Massachusetts wasn't the first of the 13 colonies to obsess about witches, though. In Windsor, Connecticut, in 1647, I hope I pronounce her name right, is it Alcy Young? She was the first person in America executed for witchcraft. Before Connecticut's final witch trial took place in 1697, 46 people were accused of witchcraft in that state, and 11 were put to death for the crime. In Virginia, people were less frantic about witches. In fact, in Lower Norfolk County in 1655, a law was passed making it a crime to falsely accuse someone of witchcraft. Still, witchcraft was a concern. About 24 witch trials, mostly of women, took place in Virginia between 1626 and 1730. None of the accused would be executed, though. Many modern-day witches still perform witchcraft, but there's really nothing sinister about it. Their spells and incantations are often derived from their Book of Shadows, which is a 20th century collection of wisdom and witchcraft and can be compared to the act of prayer in other religions, which I don't think a lot of people understand that it's not that dark. I think maybe it's the name Book of Shadows that freaks people out, but still. A modern-day witchcraft potion is more likely to be an herbal remedy for the flu instead of a hex to harm someone. Although some people, they still do hex, but it's not as commonplace. Today's witchcraft spells are usually used to stop someone from doing evil or harming themselves. Ironically, while it's probable some historical witches used witchcraft for evil purposes, many may have embraced it for healing or protection against the immorality they were accused of, which is probably even likely. But witches, whether actual or accused, still face persecution and death. Several men and women suspected of using witchcraft have been beaten and killed in Papua New Guinea since 2010, including a young mother who was burned alive. Similar episodes of violence against people accused of being witches have occurred in South America, Africa, the Middle East, and in immigrant communities in Europe and the United States. So, in a sense, there's still technically witch hunts going on, and it's absolutely despicable. Like, no one should be killed for their belief. And it's sad that there's so many misconceptions about this, and that really does contribute to it. So, but now we're going to be moving on from what witchcraft is and that history to what is Wicca. So, Wicca is a form of modern paganism, a tradition founded in England in the mid-20th century and claiming its origins in pre-Christian religions. It's a modern-day nature-based pagan religion. Though rituals and practices vary among people who identify as Wiccan, most observations include the festival celebrations of solstices and equinoxes, the honoring of a male god and a female goddess, and the incorporation of herbalism and other natural objects into their rituals. I know it sounds like it. I'm not saying Wiggins, I'm saying Wiccans. I just talk really fast. But Wiccans practice their religion according to an ethical code, which something else people don't realize. The Wiccan Rede, which even though I myself am not Wiccan, I do follow this Rede as well. But Wicca is a predominantly Western movement whose followers practice witchcraft and nature worship, and who see it as a religion based on pre-Christian traditions of Northern and Western Europe. It spread through England in the 1950s and subsequently attracted followers in Europe and the United States. Although there were precursors to the movement. The origins of modern Wicca can be traced to a retired British civil servant, Gerald Brosseau Gardner, 1884 to 1964. Gardner spent most of his career in Asia, where he became familiar with a variety of occult beliefs and magical practices. He also read widely in Western esoteric esoteric literature, including the writings of British occultist Aleister Crowley, which I've heard that he's pretty controversial because apparently he had something to do with L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. I don't know how true that is. I don't know that much about Aleister Crowley, if I'm being completely honest. I've heard quite a bit about Gardner, just not Crowley. So I can always do a deep dive into these people more if that's something that you would be interested in. Even though I personally am not Wiccan, it's something that I'd also be willing to learn about. But returning to England shortly before the outbreak of World War II, Gardner became involved in the British occult community founded a new movement based on a reverence of nature, the practice of magic, and the worship of a female deity or the goddess, and numerous associated deities such as the horned god. He also borrowed liberally from Western witchcraft traditions following the 1951 repeal of England's archaic witchcraft laws. Gardner published Witchcraft Today in 1954, founded his first coven of followers, and, with input from its members, especially author Doreen Valente, developed a modern witchcraft into what is today known as Wicca. It spread quickly to the United States in the late 1960s when an emphasis on nature, unconventional lifestyles, and a search for spiritually divorced from traditional religions were especially in vogue. So, he's really considered the one who, I guess, in a sense, created Wicca. So, like I said, I don't know much about him. We are going to get into them just a little bit, but if you'd like me to do a deep dive, let me know, because in the article I was using to research, there were so many other people that I didn't put in here. But if you'd like me to do a deep dive into that, I would be certainly happy to do so. But anyways, moving on, there is a great diversity among individuals and groups that practice a Wiccan religion, but many are duotheistic, worshipping both a female goddess and a male god, sometimes referred to as a mother goddess and a horn god. Wicca was first given a name in Gerald Gardner's 1954 book Witchcraft Today, in which he announced it as Wicca, the extra C being added in the 1960s. According to Gardner, the word was derived from Scots English and meant wise people. Gardner, considered the founder of Wicca, was born in 1884 north of Liverpool in England, a world traveler with an interest in the occult. He first heard the word Wicca used in the 1930s when he became involved in a coven in Highcliffe, England. He was initiated into the group in 1939. In 1946, he bought land in the village of Bricketwood to establish a center for folkloric study that would serve as a headquarters for a coven of his own. He met famed occultist Aleister Crowley in 1947. When he formally wrote out his Wiccan rituals, he drew strongly from Crowley's own, dating back to 1912. The two men had similar ideas. Crowley had, in 1914, proposed the idea of forming a new religion that would pull from old pagan traditions, worshipping the earth, celebrating equinoxes and solstices, and other hallmarks of nature-based worship. Gardner's fantasy novel High Magic's Aid, published in 1949, is considered one of the first standards of Wicca, but his Book of Shadows, a collection of spells and rituals, is central to Wiccan practice. Future Wiccan leader Doreen Valente met Gardner in 1952 when she contacted him following an article in Illustrated magazine that presented to their readers the reality of covens and their practices in a context of normal, educated people. Under Gardner's direction, Valente would revise the Book of Shadows for more popular consumption, exercising Crowley's influence. In 1957, Doreen split from Gardner's coven, with other members and rivals to Gardner sprang up, each with a coven of their own. Valente would become a prominent Wiccan advocate and scholar. And there is so much more to all of these people. This is honestly such a brief overview. But I didn't want this to be super long, because I don't know how long you guys would like your podcast to be. But we're just going to go ahead and move on. In 1986, Wicca was recognized as an official religion in the United States through the court case Detmer versus Landon. In the case, incarcerated Wiccan Herbert Daniel Detmer was refused ritual objects used for worship. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that Wicca was entitled to First Amendment protection like any other religion. So, like I said, not all witches are Wiccan, and vice versa. Everyone's path is different, and it's very personal, as you will learn if you're not familiar with it. Like I said, I personally am not Wiccan, but I do take concepts from it. I follow the Wiccan Rede, I celebrate the Sabbats, but my practice is very much tailored to me. And there's so many different types of witches and Wiccans. There's green witches, sea witches, kitchen witches, and there's so much more. And there is going to be an episode on these witches eventually. But that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you guys really enjoyed learning the difference between witchcraft and Wicca, and I hope you guys gained something from it. I hope you kind of took in the history and the backstory of everything, and I hope it made you realize really what these people had to go through just for modern day witches and Wiccans. And I hope it was interesting. I thought this was a really good episode to start on, where I was actually starting in on witchcraft, because I know that there's a lot of haziness surrounding witchcraft and Wicca. I know when I first started I thought they were the same thing, and now I know that they definitely are not. But that is going to be it for episode 2. Next week we're going to be diving into crystals. I'm so excited. It's going to be such a good episode. So, like I said, if you're interested in joining my Facebook group, let me know, and I can always add the link down below. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. I hope you are enjoying it so far. And I will see you guys next Thursday at 3 p.m. like always. Bye, guys.